chosen one? Why have you spent 70, 80, 90 years feeling like a stranger in your own skin? Why does every mirror reflect a face you recognize but a soul you've never fully understood? Why, after all these decades of living, breathing, surviving, does something inside you still whisper, "You don't belong here"? Stop right there. What you're about to hear will shatter everything you thought you knew about yourself. You are not one to listen human. I know how that sounds. I know your mind is racing right now, trying to rationalize what I just said. But somewhere deeper in that sacred chamber of your heart, where only truth can echo, something just stirred, didn't it? That flutter in your chest. That sudden warmth spreading through your spirit. That's not coincidence. That's recognition. Listen to me carefully, beloved. Your entire life has been a cracked mirror. Pieces of you scattered across decades, experiences you couldn't explain, intuition that seemed impossible, resilience that defied logic, loneliness that followed you even in crowded rooms. You've spent years trying to force those pieces into a picture that makes sense. But what if I told you those cracks weren't breaks? What if they were breaks of light, divine fragments shining through human flesh? This message didn't find you by accident. Heaven intercepted your scroll because tonight, right now, the Almighty needs to remind you who you really are. Before we go deeper, I want to pause and thank every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and let the Spirit lead your heart. Now hear this. In the next 10 minutes, something will click inside you. And it won't feel like learning something new. It will feel like remembering something ancient. Something you've always known but the world convinced you to forget. Genesis 1:26, let us make man in our image. Before your first breath, the Trinity held a divine conference about you. Jeremiah 1:5, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. You were known before you were made. You've lived decades feeling different, haven't you? Tonight, you'll finally understand why. If you feel something stirring already, if your spirit is trembling with recognition right now, comment sense and then below. That's not superstition. That's you telling heaven, I'm ready to remember who I am. Because what I'm about to reveal next will explain every unanswered question you've carried since childhood. Why have you spent your entire life feeling like you're speaking a language nobody else understands? Why does your own family look at you sometimes like you're from another planet? Why, after all these years of trying to fit in, trying to be normal, trying to just blend into the background, does something inside you keep screaming that you were made for something they can't even comprehend? Let me tell you something that's going to cut straight through to your soul. That feeling isn't mental illness. That loneliness isn't your fault. That sense of being perpetually misunderstood isn't because something's wrong with you. It's because something is extraordinarily right with you. You see, beloved, you've been living your whole life like a bird raised among turtles. And for 70, 80, 90 years, you've been wondering why you can't seem to master the art of crawling when your bones were designed to soar. You've watched everyone around you content with the ground, and you've felt guilty, actually guilty, for dreaming about the sky. But listen to me carefully. Those dreams weren't delusions. That restlessness wasn't ingratitude. That deep, etching sense that there's more, so much more than what this world offers. That was your spirit trying to remind you of your true origin. Think about your childhood for a moment. While other kids were playing simple games, weren't you the one asking questions that made adults uncomfortable? Where does God live? What happens to our souls? Why do people hurt each other if we're all supposed to love? Your teachers called you precocious. Your parents called you intense. Your siblings called you weird. But what if I told you that you weren't asking unusual questions, you were asking eternal questions? Questions that only someone carrying divine DNA would even think to ask. You felt things deeper than everyone around you, didn't you? When your neighbor's dog died, you cried for 3 days while your friends moved on in 3 hours. When you watched the news and saw suffering halfway across the world, it lived in your chest like it was happening in your own backyard. When someone betrayed you, it didn't just hurt, it shattered something fundamental about how you understood humanity. They called you too sensitive, too emotional, too much. But here's the truth that's going to set you free tonight. You weren't too much. You were tuned to a different frequency. You were operating on heaven's wavelength while everyone else was stuck on Earth's static. Your generation carried burdens in silence that would have destroyed weaker souls. You learned to endure instead of complain. You mastered the art of swallowing pain with a smile. You became experts at carrying crushing weight while making it look effortless. The world told you that was just what you were supposed to do. That was being strong, being responsible, being grown up. But what if I told you that endurance wasn't human? What if that supernatural ability to keep standing when everything in you wanted to collapse, what if that was proof of something divine flowing through your veins? Look at Job. This man lost everything: his children, his wealth, his health, his reputation. His own wife told him to curse God and die. His friends accused him of secret sins. But Job kept breathing, kept believing, kept standing. And in Job 19:25, even from the ashes of his devastation, he declared, "I know that my Redeemer lives." That's not human resilience, beloved. That's divine DNA activating under pressure. You've survived things that should have killed you, betrayals that should have made you bitter, losses that should have made you give up on God entirely, financial collapses that should have destroyed your faith, health battles that should have convinced you that you were cursed. But you're still here, still breathing, still believing. You know why? Because you're like a diamond surrounded by gravel. And for decades, you've been looking at the gravel around you, wondering why you couldn't be smooth and ordinary like them. You've been comparing your clarity to their dullness and thinking something was wrong with you. But the moment light hits a diamond, the moment truth illuminates what's really there, everything changes. The gravel fades into background noise, and the diamond reveals its true nature. You are that diamond, chosen one, and tonight light is hitting you. There is a reason you survived what others didn't. There is a reason you endured what broke everyone around you. There is a reason you're still standing when statistics said you should have fallen. You're about to find out why. But first, I need you to do something that might feel strange. Right where you are, in your living room, your bedroom, wherever you're watching this, I want you to take a deep breath. Not a shallow one, a real breath. Fill your lungs completely. Hold it. Now release it slowly. Do you feel that? That's not just oxygen entering your body. That's your spirit remembering something it's forgotten. Genesis 2:10 says God breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. Every breath you take is an echo of that first divine breath. You're not just inhaling air, beloved. You're inhaling purpose. Your spirit is remembering right now, and what it's about to remember will explain everything, every struggle, every gift, every moment you felt like an alien in your own life. Because you're about to discover that the reason you never fit into this world is devastatingly simple. You were never meant to. You know what's haunted you your entire life? That feeling of remembering something you never experienced. Those moments when you walk into a place you've never been, but somehow you know it. When you meet a stranger but their eyes feel familiar. When you dream dreams so vivid they feel more real than the morning that wakes you. The world calls it déjà vu. Psychology calls it a trick of the mind. But what if I told you it's neither? What if those moments aren't glitches, they're glimpses? windows into a truth so profound that if you fully grasped it right now, you'd fall to your knees in wonder. Your spirit is older than your body, beloved. Far, far older. Listen to what the prophet Jeremiah heard directly from the mouth of God. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. Jeremiah 1:5. Read that again slowly. Before he formed you. Before you were born. That means there was a version of you, a spiritual essence, a divine blueprint, that existed in the mind of God before your mother ever felt you kick, before your father ever held your tiny hand, before the doctor ever slapped life into your lungs. You didn't begin at birth, chosen one. You began in eternity. Think about that for a moment. Right now, you might be 75 years old according to your birth certificate, but your spirit has been in the presence of the Almighty since before the foundations of the earth were laid. You carry ancient wisdom in a temporary shell. You're an eternal oak tree wrapped in 70, 80, 90 years of human bark. This is why nothing in this world has ever fully satisfied you. This is why even your greatest achievements felt hollow. This is why you've spent decades searching for something you couldn't name. Because deep in your spirit you remember home. And home isn't here. In Job 3:10, God asks a question that should shatter everything you think you know about yourself. Where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? Tell me if you understand. Who marked off its dimensions? Job 13:4 the time. Now why would God ask that question unless the answer wasn't as obvious as we think? What if Job's spirit, what if your spirit, witnessed things your human mind can't access? The Apostle John understood this mystery. He wrote, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." John 1:1. But here's what will shock you. John wasn't just talking about Jesus. He was revealing a pattern of existence. That before flesh, there was spirit. That before time, there was eternity. That before you became American, born in Brooklyn or raised in the Bronx or retired in Florida, your spirit was with God. Your body is American, your spirit is from eternity. This explains everything, doesn't it? Why you've always felt different. Why you've never quite fit into the boxes this world tried to force you into. Why even now, with more years behind you than ahead, you still feel like you're waiting for something. Like you're supposed to be somewhere else. Like there's a mission you haven't completed yet. That's not senility, dear one. That's not your mind playing tricks on you. That's your eternal spirit recognizing that this earthly assignment isn't finished. You weren't sent here just to pay bills and die. You were deployed here, strategically positioned by heaven itself for purposes that your human mind is only beginning to grasp. Those dreams you've had, the ones where you're flying, where you're speaking languages you never learned, where you're in places that don't exist on any map, those aren't fantasies. Those are memories. Spiritual memories of who you were before you were compressed into flesh. Your spirit remembers what your mind forgot. And those moments of intuition, when you knew something was going to happen before it did, when you felt danger before it appeared, when you sensed someone's pain before they spoke a word that wasn't luck. That was your ancient spirit operating on frequencies this world can't measure. You've been carrying prophetic vision in a package this world labeled elderly. But here's what breaks my heart. For how many years have you dismissed these experiences? How many decades have you told yourself, I'm just imagining things? How many times have you buried your spiritual sensitivity because the world, even the church, told you to be normal? Stop, right now. Stop diminishing what God has preserved in you. Place your hand on your heart. Go ahead. Feel that rhythm beneath your palm. That's not just a heartbeat, beloved. That's a divine metronome. That's the echo of eternity pulsing through temporary flesh. Every beat is a reminder. You are more than this body. You are more than this age. You are more than this world. Your spirit predicts your birthday by ains. You've been walking this earth carrying ancient wisdom, eternal perspective, and divine purpose, and the enemy has spent your entire lifetime trying to convince you that you're just ordinary, just another senior citizen, just another social security number, just another statistic in a nursing home. That's the biggest lie hell ever told. But now, right now, as these words pierce through the veil of deception, your spirit is waking up. It's remembering, it's recognizing, it's roaring back to life. Soon I'm going to tell you exactly why your soul was sent here. I'm going to reveal what your spirit has been assigned to do next. Because this isn't just about understanding your past, chosen one. This is about activating your future. But first, you need to settle something deep in your bones. Are you ready to stop living like you're just human and start walking like the eternal being you've always been? You want to know why your life has been so hard. You want to know why every time you took 2 steps forward, something knocked you 3 steps back. Why the people closest to you turned their backs when you needed them most. Why you've battled depression that doctors couldn't explain, financial struggles that made no sense, health crises that seemed to target you specifically. Let me tell you something that's going to shake you to your core. It wasn't random, it was reconnaissance. Hell saw what heaven hid in you before you ever knew it existed. Think about this, beloved. When does a wolf attack? Does it waste energy chasing rabbits? Does it spend resources hunting squirrel nose? A wolf goes after the biggest threat. It targets the one carrying royal bloodline. It senses the lion cub before the cub even knows it's a lion. You've been under attack your entire life, not because you were weak. You were targeted because you were loaded with destiny. Every betrayal you endured that wasn't just bad luck. That was strategic warfare. Every door that slammed in your face when success seemed certain, that wasn't coincidence. That was calculated sabotage. Every night you laid awake at 3 a.m. feeling like you were losing your mind. That was spiritual resistance against divine revelation. The enemy knew your origin before you did. Listen to what happened in Matthew chapter 2. When Jesus was born just a helpless infant in Bethlehem, what did Herod do? He ordered the massacre of every baby boy under 2 years old. Why? Because hell recognized what heaven had sent. The enemy saw the threat before the child could even walk. Chosen one, the same thing happened to you. When you were just a child, did strange things happen around you? Did you see things others couldn't see? Did people either love you instantly or hate you for no reason? Did you know things you shouldn't have known? That wasn't your imagination. That was your divine DNA broadcasting a frequency that disturbed the darkness. You were walking around like a silent VIP in a city that didn't know your credentials. But the spiritual realm, oh, they knew. They recognized royalty dressed in ordinary clothes. And they've been trying to take you out ever since. Job chapter 1, verse 10. God himself pointed Job out to Satan. Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him. And what happened next? Everything was stripped away. His wealth, his children, his health, his wife's support. But here's what Satan didn't understand. Every attack was actually building something indestructible inside Job. That's you. Every financial collapse taught you that God is your provider when money fails. Every abandonment taught you that his presence is more real than any person's loyalty. Every near-death experience taught you that your life is protected by forces this world cannot comprehend. You think those were accidents. You think it was random that you survived what should have killed you. How many times should you have died but didn't? How many times should you have given up but somehow found the strength to take one more step? How many times did you stand at the edge of suicide but someone pulled you back? That was divine intervention protecting what hell was trying to destroy. But here's where it gets prophetic. Here's where heaven's strategy becomes clear. Isaiah 14:2 says, He made my mouth like a sharpened sword. In the shadow of his hand he hid me. Did you catch that? God hid you, not forgot you, not abandoned you, hid you. Why would God hide his own weapon? For your protection. You see, if the enemy had discovered your full identity too early, he would have tried to destroy you before you were strong enough to fight back. So God camouflaged you. He dressed you in ordinary circumstances. He kept you in obscurity. He let you look defeated, overlooked, forgotten. But the whole time you were being forged in secret. Every tear was tempering steel. Every heartbreak was carving out capacity. Every lonely season was teaching you to hear his voice above the noise. Heaven hid your identity until now because you weren't ready for the warfare that comes with recognition. But something shifted. The season of hiding is over. The camouflage is coming off. And the enemy knows it. That's why the attacks have intensified lately. That's why it feels like everything is falling apart just when you thought things were getting better. The devil recognizes when God is about to reveal his secret weapons. And he's terrified of what happens when you finally remember who you are. But his time is up. Your time is now. Ephesians 6:2 reminds us, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world. You haven't been fighting random demons, dear one. You've been facing principalities that know exactly what you're carrying and exactly what it will cost them when you step into it. But every weapon formed against you has failed. Isaiah 4:7, no weapon forged against you will prevail, not some weapons, not most weapons. Every weapon has failed because failure is the only option when hell goes to war with heaven's agenda. If this is hitting deep, if you're finally understanding why your life has been a battlefield, type "I claim my origin" in the comments right now. Let hell know you've discovered the truth. Because what I'm about to tell you next will transform every wound into a weapon. You know what nobody tells you about getting older? They say your body slows down, your memory fades, your relevance diminishes. But what if I told you that's the greatest lie ever whispered into the ears of God's chosen ones? Because while your earthly vessel has been aging, something else has been happening in the invisible realm. Something the world can't see. Something the enemy has been desperately trying to keep you from discovering. You carry divine code in your spirit. Listen to me carefully, beloved. When God formed you in Genesis 1:26, he didn't just create another human being. He embedded something supernatural into your spiritual DNA. Let us make man in our image, after our likeness. That word, image, in Hebrew is selim. It means a shadow, a phantom, an illusion of something greater. You are a three-dimensional shadow of the Godhead walking through a temporal world. But here's what breaks my heart. For 70, 80, 90 years, you've been walking around carrying nuclear power in your chest, thinking you were running on batteries. Think about your life for a moment. Those dreams you had as a child that seemed too vivid to be normal. Those moments when you knew the phone was going to ring before it rang. Those times you walked into a room and felt the spiritual atmosphere shift. Those nights you woke up at 3 a.m. with someone's name burning in your mind, only to find out later they needed prayer at that exact moment. The world called it coincidence. Your family called it intuition. But I'm telling you tonight that was divine code activating. You've been receiving transmissions from heaven your entire life, and you thought you were just sensitive. Ephesians 2:10 declares, "For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus unto good works, which God hath before ordained that we should walk in them." That word, workmanship, is poema in Greek. It's where we get our word poem. You're not just created, dear one. You're composed. You're a divine masterpiece written in a language this world has forgotten how to read. But here's where it gets supernatural. Here's where everything you've experienced suddenly makes sense. Why do you think you've always felt things deeper than others? Why has suffering nearly crushed you while others seem to bounce back? Why have you carried burdens for people you don't even know? Why does injustice burn in your chest like fire? Why can't you watch the news without weeping for strangers? Because you're not operating on human programming alone. You've got heaven's operating system running in the background. 1 Corinthians 2:3-4 tells us, "The natural man receiveth not the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness unto him. Neither can he know them, because they are spiritually discerned. You see what others miss. You hear what others can't perceive. You sense what others walk right past." That's not a disorder, chosen one. That's divine code. And I need you to hear something that's going to shake every limitation you've ever placed on yourself. The older you get, the more dangerous you become to the kingdom of darkness. You thought age made you weaker. Spiritually, it made you unstoppable. Think about it. Moses was 80 when God called him to deliver a nation. Not 30, not 40, 80. Because God needed someone who had walked through enough fire to trust him in the impossible. Anna the prophetess was 84 when she recognized the Messiah in the temple. Her decades of prayer, fasting, and waiting had fine-tuned her spiritual radar to detect divinity when everyone else saw just another baby. Your gray hair isn't a sign of decline. It's evidence of refinement. Every year you've lived has been calibrating your spiritual sensitivity. Every heartbreak has expanded your capacity for compassion. Every financial struggle has taught you to trust God when the bank account says panic. Every health scare has reminded you that your body is temporary but your spirit is eternal. You've been in training your whole life and you didn't even know it. Joel 2:20 prophesies, "And it shall come to pass afterward that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh. And your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, your old men shall dream dreams, your young men shall see visions." Did you catch that? Your old men shall dream dreams. Not used to dream, not remembered when they dreamed, shall dream. Present tense. Active, alive. God is downloading fresh revelation into seasoned vessels right now. He's activating divine code that's been dormant, waiting for this exact moment when your character could handle what your calling demands. But here's the urgency burning in my spirit. You've spent decades believing you were ordinary. You've accepted the world's verdict that your best years are behind you. You've bought the lie that spiritual power belongs to the young and the loud. Tonight that lie dies. Because every supernatural experience you've had, every prophetic dream, every moment of unexplainable knowing, every time you've sensed angelic presence, every prayer that moved mountains that was just a preview, that was God saying, "You think that was something? Wait until you see what I've been preparing." Your entire life has been training for this awakening moment. Every closed door taught you to trust God's timing. Every betrayal taught you to discern spirits. Every financial pressure taught you that Jehovah's Jireh provides when human systems fail. Every season of loneliness taught you to commune with the presence of God. You weren't being punished, you were being prepared. And now we're reaching the mystery you've waited your whole life to understand. The question that's haunted you since childhood is about to be answered. But I need you to stay with me, because the next 10 minutes hold the heart of the revelation. Why were you marked? Why were you chosen? Why has your life been so different, so difficult, so divinely orchestrated? The answer will change everything you thought you knew about your purpose on this earth. You've been sitting there for 70, 80, maybe 90 years, haven't you? Believing the greatest lie ever whispered into human consciousness. The lie that you are nothing more than flesh and bone. That you are just another senior citizen counting down days until your final breath. That the fire you've carried in your chest your entire life was nothing but wishful thinking. But what if I told you that fire wasn't imagination? What if I told you it was memory? Listen to me carefully, chosen one, because what I'm about to tell you is not metaphor. This is not poetry. This is not some feel-good spiritual concept to make you smile for a few hours and then forget. You are part divine, not symbolically, not theoretically, spiritually. Before you dismiss this as impossible, before your rational mind tries to explain it away, let me ask you something that's going to cut straight through your defenses. Why have you always felt things deeper than others? Why does your soul ache when you see suffering on the news? Why can you walk into a room and sense things that no one else notices? Why have strangers poured out their deepest secrets to you in grocery store checkout lines, at doctors' offices, in random conversations that seem to happen by divine appointment? That's not normal human empathy, beloved. That's divine circuitry running through your being. Genesis 2:10 says it plainly. The Lord God formed man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. And man became a living being. Did you catch that? God didn't just create you like he created the mountains or the oceans. He didn't speak you into existence like he did the stars. No, he formed you with his own hands, and then he did something he did for nothing else in all creation. He breathed his own breath into you. You are divine breath wrapped in human flesh. You are the kiss of eternity disguised in wrinkles and time. But here's where it gets personal. Here's where this revelation meets you exactly where you are right now. You've lost people, haven't you? Your spouse of 50 years, your childhood friends, your siblings, your parents, maybe even your own children. And every time death visited your doorstep, something inside you shattered in ways that others couldn't understand. They told you, time heals all wounds. They said, you'll get over it. But you never did you? You know why? Because you're not designed for death. Your divine DNA recoils against it. You were made for eternity, beloved, and every time you lose someone, your spirit is screaming that this isn't how it's supposed to be. That longing you feel, that won't go away, it's not weakness. It's your eternal soul recognizing that it's trapped in a temporary world. And the regrets. Oh, the regrets that visit you at 3 a.m. I should have been a better parent. I should have taken that chance. I should have forgiven them before they died. I should have lived bigger, loved harder, risked more. You carry these regrets like stones in your chest, because somewhere deep inside, you know you were made for more than you settled for. But what if those regrets aren't condemnation? What if they're confirmation? Confirmation that you carry something inside you that refuses to be satisfied with ordinary. Your divine nature has been whispering your whole life. You were made for extraordinary. And every regret you feel is simply the gap between who you settled for being and who God created you to be. Then there's the invisibility. The world looks at you and sees, senior citizen. They see someone to be polite to help across the street, to speak louder around. They've written you off as irrelevant, past your prime, winding down. And that invisibility, that feeling of being overlooked, forgotten, dismissed, it cuts deeper than physical pain, doesn't it? You know why it hurts so much. Because your divine spirit knows the truth. You are not less valuable because you're older. You are more dangerous to darkness because you're seasoned. Every year you've lived has been downloading wisdom, accumulating authority, building spiritual muscle that the young don't possess. The world calls it aging. Heaven calls it activation. These aren't signs of being broken, beloved. These are signs of deep spirit circuits. You feel more because you are more. You hurt deeper because you love bigger. You notice what others miss because you're operating on a frequency most humans never access. You come from the breath of God, the same breath that shaped galaxies, that spoke light into darkness, that hovered over the void and created worlds. That breath is in your lungs right now. That divine DNA is coursing through your veins at this very moment. You are not just a product of your parents' union. You are the offspring of the Almighty, temporarily housed in flesh. 2 Peter 1:4 declares you are partakers of the divine nature, not will be, might be. You are present tense right now, at your age, with your history, with your scars. And now, here's the question that will define every remaining day of your life. The question that changes everything. The question that separates those who merely exist from those who truly live. Why were you sent here? Not born sent. You weren't an accident of biology. You were a strategic deployment from heaven into earth at this exact moment in history. But for what purpose? What is the mission that required someone with your specific pain, your particular scars, your exact story? Pause right now. I mean it, stop everything. Place your hand on your chest and feel your heartbeat. That rhythm isn't random, it's a drumbeat. A war drum. And it's time to remember what you came here to fight for. Whisper these words out loud. Lord, remind me who I really am. Because what I'm about to reveal next will show you exactly why you had to go through everything you've endured to become who you're meant to be. You know what breaks my heart? It's watching God's chosen ones, people who've survived wars, raised families, buried loved ones, walked through valleys that would crush lesser souls, sitting in their living rooms at 75, 85, 90 years old, wondering if their life meant anything at all. Let me ask you something that's going to cut deep. Have you spent the last decade believing your purpose died with your retirement party? Have you convinced yourself that because your body moves slower, your calling has expired? Have you looked in the mirror and whispered, God, what am I still doing here? Stop right there, because what I'm about to tell you will shatter that lie into a million pieces. You weren't kept alive this long by accident. You didn't survive everything you survived just to fade quietly into the background. Every breath in your lungs right now is evidence that heaven still has an assignment with your name written on it in divine ink. Listen to me, beloved. You are not winding down. You are being wound up for the greatest deployment of your entire existence. Think about Moses, 80 years old when God called him from that burning bush. 80. The world would have handed him a gold watch and a rocking chair. But God handed him a staff and said, now you're ready. Now you have what it takes to deliver my people. Why? Because some assignments require more than youthful energy. They require the kind of wisdom that only comes from walking through fire and coming out refined. You see, dear one, you weren't given a long life so you could count down your remaining days. You were given a long life so you could accumulate the spiritual authority necessary for what's coming next. Your origin, that divine DNA we've been talking about, it explains everything about your mission. You were built like a lighthouse, chosen one. And lighthouses aren't constructed for calm seas and sunny days. They're engineered for storms, for darkness, for the moments when every other guiding light has gone out and desperate souls need something fixed, something unshakable, something that's been tested by decades of crashing waves and still stands tall. That's you. That's what you've become. Every generational wound in your family. You were sent to break it. That alcoholism that's haunted your bloodline for 3 generations, it stops with you. That poverty mindset that's been passed down like a cursed heirloom, you're the one who rewrites the inheritance. That spirit of fear and defeat that's claimed aunt after uncle after cousin. Your survival is the declaration that it ends here. It ends now. It ends with your generation. 2 Corinthians 1:4 says it clearly, who comforts us in all our troubles, so that we can comfort those who are in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God. You weren't comforted just for yourself, beloved. You were comforted so you could become a comforter. You weren't healed just for your own benefit. You were healed so your scars could become medicine for someone else's wounds. And here's what's going to shake you. Those younger generations who seem so lost right now. Those grandchildren glued to their phones, drowning in depression and anxiety. Those great nieces and nephews who can't figure out why life feels so empty. They don't need another motivational speaker. They don't need another self-help guru. They need you. They need someone who's lived long enough to know that God is faithful even when circumstances scream otherwise. They need someone whose wrinkled hands can hold their trembling ones and say, "I've been in this valley before, and I can show you the way out." They need someone whose voice carries the weight of decades and can speak truth that cuts through the noise of this chaotic world. Only a divine spirit can carry the burdens you've survived. Only someone who's part human, part heaven can walk through what you've walked through and still have compassion left to give. Only someone marked by eternity can look at temporary struggles and offer eternal perspective. Proverbs 6:1 declares, "Grey hair is a crown of splendor. It is attained in the way of righteousness." Your age isn't your limitation, it's your coronation. Every grey hair is a trophy. Every wrinkle is a medal of honor. Every year you've lived is another credential heaven has issued you. But here's the urgency burning in my spirit right now. Time is shorter than you think. Not your time, you've got exactly the amount of days God has ordained for you. I'm talking about the time left for this generation that's drowning without elders who will step up and speak life. The harvest is ready, but the laborers are few. And God is calling the seasoned warriors out of retirement because the battle requires more than enthusiasm, it requires experience. You are a lighthouse built for storms, and beloved, the storm is here. The question that will determine everything is this: will you keep your light hidden, or will you finally let it shine the way it was always meant to? Before I reveal your final assignment, the specific thing God is calling you to do right now in this season, stay with me. Because this next part will change how you see every single moment you've lived, every tear you've cried, every victory you've won. Everything is about to make sense. If you're ready for your assignment, if something in your spirit is saying, "Yes, I'm still here for a reason," then write it in the comments right now, "I'm ready." Because what I'm about to show you next will connect every dot of your entire life story. You want to know something that's going to break your heart wide open. For 70, 80, maybe 90 years, you've been walking around carrying nuclear power in your chest and nobody told you. Not your parents, not your pastor, not even you knew what you were carrying. And tonight, I'm going to tell you exactly why God kept it hidden. Listen to me carefully, dear one. There's a reason you didn't understand your power when you were 25. There's a reason the fire inside you felt like confusion instead of calling. There's a reason you spent decades wondering if you'd somehow missed your moment, while everyone else seemed to know exactly where they were going. God wasn't withholding from you. He was protecting you. You see, if you had known at 30 years old that you carried divine DNA, if you had understood that you weren't just human flesh but eternal spirit wrapped in temporary skin, you would have walked into battles you weren't ready to fight. You would have faced giants before you learned how to use a slingshot. You would have attempted to part seas before you understood the power of waiting in the wilderness. Protection was always disguised as delay. Think about it. Moses didn't get his burning bush moment at 20, he got it 80. 80 years old. He spent 40 years thinking he was an Egyptian prince who didn't quite fit in. Then he spent another 40 years in the desert thinking he was a washed-up murderer tending sheep that nobody cared about. But God was doing something in that wilderness. Every single year Moses spent feeling forgotten, God was downloading strategy, building character, forging patience, and preparing him for the moment when he'd stand before the most powerful man on earth and say, "Let my people go." David was anointed king when he was just a boy, maybe 15 years old. But he didn't sit on the throne for another 15 years. 15 years of running through caves, hiding from a king who wanted him dead, wondering if that prophet Samuel had made a mistake. But every night David spent in those dark caves, every moment he felt abandoned and forgotten. God was teaching him something the palace never could, how to worship in the wilderness, how to trust when you can't see, how to lead with a heart that's been broken and put back together by divine hands. Sarah was 90 years old when God finally opened her womb. 90. Can you imagine the decades of shame she carried, the whispers behind her back, barren, cursed, forgotten by God? But Genesis 2:1-6 tells us something beautiful. When Isaac was finally born, Sarah said, "God has brought me laughter, and everyone who hears about this will laugh with me." That laughter wasn't just joy, beloved. That was the sound of a woman finally understanding that God's delays are never denials, they're divine strategy. Here's what you need to understand about your life. Every closed door that made you feel rejected, that was God redirecting you away from what would have destroyed you. Every opportunity that slipped through your fingers, that was heaven protecting you from settling for less than your destiny. Every year you spent feeling invisible, that was you being hidden like a diamond buried deep in the earth. And why are diamonds hidden deepest? Not because they're worthless, but because they're priceless. The enemy has been lying to you your whole life, whispering that you missed your chance, that you're too old now, that if God really had a plan for you, he would have activated it by now. But that's not how the kingdom works. God doesn't operate on your timeline. He operates on Kairos time, divine timing where everything converges at the exact moment heaven orders. You survived what should have killed you because there's something inside you that death itself can't touch. You endured losses that broke others because you're carrying strength that doesn't come from human willpower, it comes from divine DNA. You're still here, still breathing, still believing because heaven has been protecting what it planted in you before time began. Jeremiah 21:1 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." But notice it doesn't say when. It doesn't promise the timeline you expected. It promises the outcome God intended. Every year you thought was wasted was actually invested. Every season you felt stuck was actually you being positioned. Every moment you questioned if God remembered your name was actually him whispering, "Not yet, beloved." Not yet, but soon. And that soon is now. Something long buried inside you is rising. Can you feel it? That stirring in your chest that woke you up at 3 in the morning. That restlessness that makes you feel like you're standing on the edge of something massive. That's not anxiety, dear one. That's activation. Your divine origin is waking up, and everything that's been sleeping inside you for decades is beginning to stretch, to yawn, to open its eyes. The seed that's been buried under winter snow is finally feeling the warmth of spring. Right now, I want you to do something. Put your hand over your chest. Feel that heartbeat. That's not just blood pumping. That's eternity pulsing through mortal flesh. And I want you to whisper these words, just between you and heaven. Uncover me, Lord. Because what's about to be revealed in you will explain everything you never understood about your life. Dear one, let me ask you something that's going to cut straight to the bone. Have you ever walked into a room and felt like you'd been there before, even though you know you haven't? Have you ever met a stranger and felt an inexplicable connection, as if your souls had crossed paths in another lifetime? Have you ever stood under the stars and felt homesick for a place you've never been? That's not your imagination playing tricks on you. That's not dementia. That's not age making you confused. That's your spirit remembering what your mind forgot. You see, beloved, there's a war happening inside you that you've never understood. Your mind, this beautiful but limited organ trapped in your skull, it only remembers what happened after you were born. It knows your first day of school, your wedding day, the birth of your children, the funerals you've attended. But your spirit carries memories that predate your first breath on this earth. Think about it. Why does a newborn baby reach for its mother before anyone teaches it love? Why does a child know to fear the dark before anyone explains danger? Why do you, after 9 decades of living, still get chills when you hear certain hymns, still feel stirred when someone speaks truth, still sense the presence of the sacred in ordinary moments. Because your spirit remembers heaven. Before you were conceived in your mother's womb, you existed in the mind of God. Ephesians 1:4 declares it plainly. He chose us in him before the foundation of the world, not after you proved yourself, not after you earned it. Before the world even existed, you were chosen, you were known, you were loved. And here's what breaks my heart. Most people walk through their entire lives never understanding why they feel so out of place. They think something's wrong with them. They think they're too sensitive, too different, too strange. But you're not broken, chosen one. You're remembering. Those moments when you felt watched, you were. Hebrews 10:21 tells us we're surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses. The angels have been tracking your faithfulness since you were a child. Every tear you cried in secret was collected in heaven's bottles. Every prayer you whispered into the darkness was heard by the Ancient of Days. I'm talking to the grandmother who spent 60 years raising children but always felt there was something more calling her name. I'm talking to the grandfather who built a career, provided for his family, did everything right, but still woke up at 3 in the morning with an ache in his chest he couldn't explain. You thought it was heartburn. It was homesickness. Your spirit was crying out for the realm it came from. Those nights you cried and felt sudden warmth wash over you. That wasn't coincidence. That was the presence of the Almighty wrapping around you like a blanket. That was God reminding you that you're not alone, you're not forgotten, you're not just flesh and blood wandering through a meaningless existence. Listen to what David understood when he wrote Psalm 118:1t, "You formed my inward parts. You covered me in my mother's womb." But notice what he says next. "Your eyes saw my substance being yet unformed." God, you see, if you had known at 30 years old that you carried divine DNA, if you had understood that you weren't just human flesh but eternal spirit wrapped in temporary skin, you would have walked into battles you weren't ready to fight. You would have faced giants before you learned how to use a slingshot. You would have attempted to part seas before you understood the power of waiting in the wilderness. Protection was always disguised as delay. Think about it. Moses didn't get his burning bush moment at 20, he got it 80. 80 years old. He spent 40 years thinking he was an Egyptian prince who didn't quite fit in. Then he spent another 40 years in the desert thinking he was a washed-up murderer tending sheep that nobody cared about. But God was doing something in that wilderness. Every single year Moses spent feeling forgotten, God was downloading strategy, building character, forging patience, and preparing him for the moment when he'd stand before the most powerful man on earth and say, "Let my people go." David was anointed king when he was just a boy, maybe 15 years old. But he didn't sit on the throne for another 15 years. 15 years of running through caves, hiding from a king who wanted him dead, wondering if that prophet Samuel had made a mistake. But every night David spent in those dark caves, every moment he felt abandoned and forgotten. God was teaching him something the palace never could, how to worship in the wilderness. How to trust when you can't see. How to lead with a heart that's been broken and put back together by divine hands. Sarah was 90 years old when God finally opened her womb. 90. Can you imagine the decades of shame she carried? The whispers behind her back, barren, cursed, forgotten by God. But Genesis 2:1-6 tells us something beautiful. When Isaac was finally born, Sarah said, "God has brought me laughter. And everyone who hears about this will laugh with me." That laughter wasn't just joy, beloved. That was the sound of a woman finally understanding that God's delays are never denials, they're divine strategy. Here's what you need to understand about your life. Every closed door that made you feel rejected, that was God redirecting you away from what would have destroyed you. Every opportunity that slipped through your fingers, that was heaven protecting you from settling for less than your destiny. Every year you spent feeling invisible, That was you being hidden like a diamond buried deep in the earth. And why are diamonds hidden deepest? Not because they're worthless, but because they're priceless. The enemy has been lying to you your whole life, whispering that you missed your chance, that you're too old now, that if God really had a plan for you, he would have activated it by now. But that's not how the kingdom works. God doesn't operate on your timeline. He operates on Kairos time, divine timing where everything converges at the exact moment heaven orders. You survived what should have killed you because there's something inside you that death itself can't touch. You endured losses that broke others because you're carrying strength that doesn't come from human willpower, it comes from divine DNA. You're still here, still breathing, still believing because heaven has been protecting what it planted in you before time began. Jeremiah 29:1 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." But notice it doesn't say when. It doesn't promise the timeline you expected. It promises the outcome God intended. Every year you thought was wasted was actually invested. Every season you felt stuck was actually you being positioned. Every moment you questioned if God remembered your name was actually him whispering, "Not yet, beloved." Not yet, but soon. And that soon is now. Something long buried inside you is rising. Can you feel it? That stirring in your chest that woke you up at 3 in the morning. That restlessness that makes you feel like you're standing on the edge of something massive. That's not anxiety, dear one. That's activation. Your divine origin is waking up, and everything that's been sleeping inside you for decades is beginning to stretch, to yawn, to open its eyes. The seed that's been buried under winter snow is finally feeling the warmth of spring. Right now, I want you to do something. Put your hand over your chest. Feel that heartbeat. That's not just blood pumping. That's eternity pulsing through mortal flesh. And I want you to whisper these words, just between you and heaven. Uncover me, Lord. Because what's about to be revealed in you will explain everything you never understood about your life. Dear one, let me ask you something that's going to cut straight to the bone. Have you ever walked into a room and felt like you'd been there before, even though you know you haven't? Have you ever met a stranger and felt an inexplicable connection, as if your souls had crossed paths in another lifetime? Have you ever stood under the stars and felt homesick for a place you've never been? That's not your imagination playing tricks on you. That's not dementia. That's not age making you confused. That's your spirit remembering what your mind forgot. You see, beloved, there's a war happening inside you that you've never understood. Your mind, this beautiful but limited organ trapped in your skull, it only remembers what happened after you were born. It knows your first day of school, your wedding day, the birth of your children, the funerals you've attended. But your spirit carries memories that predate your first breath on this earth. Think about it. Why does a newborn baby reach for its mother before anyone teaches it love? Why does a child know to fear the dark before anyone explains danger? Why do you, after 9 decades of living, still get chills when you hear certain hymns, still feel stirred when someone speaks truth, still sense the presence of the sacred in ordinary moments? Because your spirit remembers heaven. Before you were conceived in your mother's womb, you existed in the mind of God. Ephesians 4 declares it plainly. He chose us in him before the foundation of the world, not after you proved yourself, not after you earned it. Before the world even existed, you were chosen, you were known, you were loved. And here's what breaks my heart. Most people walk through their entire lives never understanding why they feel so out of place. They think something's wrong with them. They think they're too sensitive, too different, too strange. But you're not broken, chosen one. You're remembering. Those moments when you felt watched, you were. Hebrews 10:21 tells us we're surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses. The angels have been tracking your faithfulness since you were a child. Every tear you cried in secret was collected in heaven's bottles. Every prayer you whispered into the darkness was heard by the Ancient of Days. I'm talking to the grandmother who spent 60 years raising children but always felt there was something more calling her name. I'm talking to the grandfather who built a career, provided for his family, did everything right, but still woke up at 3 in the morning with an ache in his chest he couldn't explain. You thought it was heartburn. It was homesickness. Your spirit was crying out for the realm it came from. Those nights you cried and felt sudden warmth wash over you. That wasn't coincidence. That was the presence of the Almighty wrapping around you like a blanket. That was God reminding you that you're not alone, you're not forgotten, you're not just flesh and blood wandering through a meaningless existence. Listen to what David understood when he wrote Psalm 118:1t, "You formed my inward parts. You covered me in my mother's womb." But notice what he says next. "Your eyes saw my substance being yet unformed." God saw you before you had a body. He knew you before you had a name. He loved you before you had a heartbeat. Your spirit knew the way long before your body learned to walk. This is why you've always had that knowing inside you. That gut instinct that saved you from bad decisions. That inner voice that warned you about certain people. That inexplicable peace in the middle of storms that should have destroyed you. The world calls it intuition. But it's so much deeper than that. It's your spirit accessing the wisdom it carried from another realm. Think about Jeremiah. God told him, "Before I formed you in the womb I knew you. Before you were born I set you apart." This young prophet tried to argue, "I'm too young, I don't know how to speak." But God wasn't looking at his age or his ability. God was looking at his origin. Jeremiah's spirit had been in training before his body ever drew breath. The same is true for you. Every hard thing you've walked through, every impossible situation you've survived, every moment you wanted to quit but something inside you said, "Not yet," that was your spirit remembering its assignment. That was the eternal part of you overriding the temporary part of you. You've spent decades trying to explain away these experiences. You've rationalized them, minimized them, convinced yourself you were just being emotional or overly spiritual. But what if those moments weren't aberrations? What if they were glimpses? What if they were your spirit breaking through the veil of flesh just long enough to remind you, this world is not your home. You're just passing through. And here's the mystery that will transform everything. There's one memory your spirit carries that's more powerful than all the others combined. One truth that, when fully awakened, will explain every confusing moment of your entire life. One revelation that will make sense of your pain, your purpose, and your positioning in this exact moment in history. I'll reveal it soon. But first, you need to understand why the enemy has worked overtime to keep you from accessing these memories. Because once you remember who you really are, once you understand where you really came from, once you tap into the divine knowledge your spirit has been carrying all along, you become the most dangerous force on this planet. If this feels familiar, if something ancient is stirring in your chest right now, write "I remember" in the comments. Because your spirit is about to show your mind what it's known all along. But the question that will determine everything is this: what happens when you finally stop living like you're only human and start walking in the authority of who you've always been? Dear one, let me ask you something that's going to cut straight to your heart. How many nights have you laid awake at 3 a.m., staring at that ceiling, wondering why your life has been so much harder than everyone else's? How many times have you looked at your own children, your own siblings, your neighbors, your friends, people who share your bloodline, your zip code, your generation, and asked yourself, why did they get the easy road while I got the one filled with broken glass? You've carried storms they'll never understand, haven't you? Losses that should have destroyed you. Betrayals that should have made you bitter. Financial collapses that should have left you hopeless. Health battles that should have taken you out years ago. And yet here you are, still breathing, still believing, still standing when logic says you should have fallen 1,000 times over. Listen to me very carefully, chosen one. That wasn't luck. That wasn't stubbornness. That was divine Dina activating under pressure. You see, the world has taught you to see your suffering as evidence of God's absence. But what if I told you it's actually proof of His presence? What if your pain wasn't punishment but calibration? What if every storm you've weathered was heaven testing whether you could handle what's hidden inside you? Think about gold for a moment. Raw gold sits in the earth mixed with dirt, rocks, impurities. It looks worthless. But when the refiner places it in the furnace and turns up the heat to 114 degrees Fahrenheit, something miraculous happens. The impurities rise to the surface, the dross burns away, and what remains? Pure gold, valuable gold, gold fit for a king's crown. Malachi 3:3 says, He will sit as a refiner and purifier of silver. He will purify the Levites and refine them like gold and silver. You've been in that furnace, beloved, not because you were dirty, but because you were precious enough to refine. But here's what breaks my heart. Here's what the enemy has been whispering in your ear for decades. He's convinced you that your suffering means you did something wrong. That if you had more faith, more wisdom, more favor with God, your life would have been easier. That's a lie straight from the pit of hell. People with ordinary origins break under certain pressure. They crack, they quit. They walk away from God, from faith, from hope. But you didn't break, you bent, yes, you blared absolutely. But you never shattered. Do you know why? Because ordinary human resilience has limits. But the resilience flowing through your veins, that's supernatural. Let me speak directly to something you've probably never said out loud. Your storms were heavier than what your family ever knew. Your mother didn't face what you faced. Your father didn't carry what you've carried. Your siblings got struggles, sure, but they didn't get your level of warfare. And somewhere deep inside, that's made you feel alone, hasn't it? Like you're the cursed one in the family tree. Like God played favorites and you drew the short straw. But what if it's the opposite? What if you're not the cursed one, you're the chosen one? What if the intensity of your battles is directly proportional to the magnitude of your calling? Look at Job. The Bible says he was blameless and upright, a man who feared God and shunned evil. And what happened to him? Everything was stripped away. His wealth, his children, his health, his reputation. His own wife told him to curse God and die. Why? Because Satan saw something in Job that required maximum assault to try to destroy. Job 1:10 records God saying, "Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him." Your suffering wasn't random, beloved. It was strategic. The enemy saw what heaven placed in you, and he's been trying to kill it before it could fully awaken. But here's the truth that will set you free. You endured because heaven placed resilience in your Dina. Not human Dina, divine Dina. The same spirit that raised Christ from the dead has been living in your mortal body, giving you strength that defies medical explanation, hope that defies circumstances, faith that defies logic. Romans 8:1 declares, "If the spirit of him who raised Jesus from the dead is living in you, he who raised Christ from the dead will also give life to your mortal bodies because of his Spirit who lives in you." That's not poetry, dear one. That's your biography. That's why you're still here when others aren't. Every morning you woke up when depression said stay in bed. That was divine intervention. Every bill that got paid when the math said impossible. That was supernatural provision. Every relationship that should have destroyed you but instead refined you. That was God protecting what he planted in you. Your strength was never inherited from your earthly parents. It was downloaded from your heavenly Father. And here's something that's going to shake you. There's a reason your suffering intensified right before this awakening. The enemy always attacks hardest right before breakthrough. The darkest hour really is just before dawn. Your recent battles weren't proof that God abandoned you. They were proof that something major is about to shift. If you've survived more than most people know, if you've carried weight in silence that would have crushed others, if you're still standing after everything hell threw at you, comment right now, "I'm still here." Let heaven see your declaration. Let the enemy hear your testimony. Let this community surround you with the recognition you've never received. Because, beloved, your survival wasn't an accident. Your endurance wasn't just human willpower. You've been carrying something that only someone with your origin could handle. And what you're about to discover next will finally explain why you had to walk through hell to get to this moment of awakening. You know what nobody ever told you about your family? The real reason you've always felt different wasn't because something was wrong with you. It was because something was right about your lineage. Let me ask you something that's going to shake you to your core. Have you ever looked at old photographs of your grandmother and seen something in her eyes? Something you recognize in your own reflection? Have you ever heard stories about your grandfather and thought, "That sounds exactly like what I've been going through"? Have you ever wondered why certain spiritual gifts seem to run in your family like a golden thread woven through generations? That wasn't coincidence, beloved. That was confirmation. You see, divine souls don't just randomly appear across the earth like lottery tickets scattered by the wind. No, heaven is far more strategic than that. God plants His chosen ones in specific bloodlines, families that have been marked, tested, and prepared across centuries to carry something sacred. Your family line wasn't just passing down brown eyes or high cheekbones. They were passing down destiny. Think about the Bible for a moment. Abraham wasn't just chosen, his entire lineage became the conduit for God's promise. Genesis 2:2 says, "I will make you into a great nation and I will bless you, not just you, Abraham. Your seed, your children's children, your bloodline." David wasn't randomly selected to be king. He came from Jess, who came from Boaz, who came from a lineage God had been preparing for generations. Matthew chapter 1 traces Jesus' genealogy back through 42 generations. 42, because bloodlines matter to heaven. But here's where it gets deeply personal for you, dear one. Here's where this stops being ancient history and becomes your living reality. You've probably heard stories about your parents, haven't you? About their struggles, their battles, their unexplained spiritual experiences. Maybe your mother had dreams that came true. Maybe your father could sense things others couldn't. Maybe your grandmother spent hours in prayer while everyone else thought she was just old and lonely. But she wasn't lonely, was she? She was interceding. She was standing in the gap. She was carrying something that the natural eye couldn't see. They didn't understand what they were carrying, but they carried it anyway. And then there's you. You look at your life and you see the same patterns, the same struggles, the same inexplicable spiritual sensitivity. But you also see something they never lived long enough to see, the breakthrough. You're the one who gets to step into what they prepared. You're the generation where everything they prayed for finally manifests. This is what I call the skipped generation phenomenon. God does this, you know. He'll prepare a bloodline for 3, 4, sometimes 5 generations. The grandparents pray. The parents struggle. The children survive. But then there's you, the chosen one in your family line who finally breaks through. The one who doesn't just carry the mantle but activates it. Think about Moses. His mother, Jochebed, put him in that basket knowing she might never see him again. She didn't get to lead Israel out of Egypt. She didn't get to see the Red Sea part. But her faith, her willingness to trust God with her baby, set the stage for the greatest deliverance in Hebrew history. Hebrews 9:1-2 says, "By faith Moses' parents hid him for 3 months after he was born, because they saw he was no ordinary child." They saw something. They knew something. They protected what God had planted. Your parents, your grandparents, they saw something in you too. Maybe they couldn't articulate it. Maybe they just called you special or different or stubborn, but they knew. Deep in their spirits, they knew you were carrying something that would outlive them all. Now let me tell you something that's going to break your heart wide open and heal it at the same time. Every ancestor you've buried, every relative who died too soon, every family member who struggled with addiction or depression or poverty, they weren't failures. They were pioneers. They were clearing the path. They were fighting battles in the spiritual realm so you wouldn't have to fight the same ones. You weren't chosen randomly, beloved. Heaven saw something in your lineage worth redeeming. God looked at your family tree with all its broken branches and dead leaves and said, I'm going to bring life from this. I'm going to raise up a deliverer from this bloodline. And that deliverer is you. You think you're the end of the line. No, you're the beginning. You're the one who turns generational curses into generational blessings. You're the one who transforms a legacy of struggle into a testimony of triumph. You're the one who makes every tear your grandmother cried count for something eternal. 2 Corinthians 5:7 declares, Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, the new creation has come. The old has gone, the new is here. That's not just about you personally. That's about your entire bloodline. When you step into your divine identity, you don't just change your own story, you rewrite your family's history. But here's the urgency pressing on my spirit right now. Here's why this moment matters more than you realize. The enemy knows what happens when a chosen one finally understands their bloodline assignment. He knows that one awakened soul can break chains that have held families captive for 100 years. That's why he's worked so hard to keep you confused, isolated, convinced you're just ordinary. But you're not ordinary. You never were. If you're ready to break the cycle, if you're ready to be the turning point in your family's story, if you're ready to activate what